Welcome back, MTN Giants podcast. Giants start 2-7 for the third year in a row, just something that we're way too familiar with. And it was just more of the same this week. Just not good tackling, guys that are just not showing too much effort. Run defense is just god-awful. I mean, last week it was bad. I feel like the Denver game was bad. This week was really bad. It felt like every single toss the Niners ran, outside of like one time where McCaffrey got stopped for a 4-yard loss, every other time, when you get to those cornerbacks, when you have a running back versus the cornerbacks, and it's just like Corey Black and it's Deonte Banks as your defender to stop the run, it just does not go well. And we just saw a lot of that today. I mean, I give credit to Shanahan and his scheme. That definitely was an issue for the Giants, but they lack talent. They were missing 3 starters in the secondary: Holland, Adebo, Flott. And you're just out there with guys like Corey Black and Deonte Banks, where in most cases when you're down to your third corner, it's a guy who's like a 5th or 6th round pick or undrafted free agent. In this case, the Giants have that as a former first-round pick from 3 years ago, and the guy is like basically unplayable. And the effort we saw, or lack thereof, from Deonte Banks on the Brian Robinson touchdown late in the game, that was just pitiful. I mean, I know the game was over, but can we show some hustle or something? Like, that was really bad. Just another lost season. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I can't say I even care about these losses anymore because we've known for a while that this year is over. And as I said, this is the Giants next week have a chance to go 2-8 for the third year in a row. And it's just like they're playing Chicago. At Chicago, they put up 40-something points today. I know they played the Bengals' horrible defense, but I can't say the Giants' defense is a whole lot better in the current shape that they're in. But the point is, a team should not be starting 2-8 3 years in a row. I don't care if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Carolina Panthers, Cincinnati Bengals, whoever. No NFL team should be starting 3-8 or 2-8, 3 years in a row. You just can't have it, especially a team that's in New York, a team that when I was a kid growing up watching this team, whether I was a young kid or even a teenager, this team would at least win 7 games every year and was at least a respectable team. I saw them win 2 Super Bowls when I was young. It was great. And now you have this team, it's just, I feel like the culture now is just losing. It's just guys that don't care. I mean, we have some guys that care. I don't want to say everybody. I feel like Jackson Dart, he definitely cares. Brian Burns. I still like what I see from Abdul Carter. I mean, there's guys that do stuff on this team, but for the most part, it's just too much of the same crap year after year. I mean, there were examples today of even, and I hate to put it all on Dable because there's not much talent here to work with, but there was like examples today of bad coaching. There was a 3rd and 4 I think the Giants had. There was a false start on, I think it was Marcus Bowe, and who else was it? John Michael Schmitz was the first one. Marcus Bowe was the second one. Of course, John Michael Schmitz later got hurt. But they had back-to-back false starts, a 3rd and 4, which is very manageable. Then you go back to 3rd and 9 after the first false start. It's like, all right, not ideal, but we can still convert 3rd and 9. And then you do it again and make a 3rd and 14. And it's like, dude, you just can't have it. That's just self-inflicted wounds that you just really cannot overcome, especially when your wide receiver 1 is 5'8" Wan'Dale Robinson. And don't even get me started on Darius Slayton. I mean, that tweet he had about the rest of the receiving corps not being bums outside of Malik Neighbors is looking like a very cold take. Darius Slayton, I've said this ever since he was like a rookie. The guy has a very tough time catching through contact. And what did we see again? It was garbage time. It didn't really matter, but it just proves the point yet again that he should have had a touchdown. Luckily, Gunnar Olszewski had one after that, so it didn't matter. But Slayton had a great ball to catch from Dart, who threw it perfectly, and he just got it ripped out by the cornerback. You just got to catch through contact once in a while. We just don't see it with him, and it bothers me. But so there's a lot to talk about with this team. I mean, I don't know how long this will be of a reaction, and there's plays I want to go over, of course. So anyway, hope you guys enjoy. Leave a like, subscribe, and let's get into it. Offensively for the Giants, it was a lot of checkdowns in the passing game. It seems like the Niners were playing a lot of zone and taking away anything deep. We didn't really see too many deep passes from Dart until like the very end. I mentioned the Slayton drop, the Olszewski touchdown, but I feel like there weren't many deep shots from Jackson Dart. A lot of just short stuff and trying to pick up the first down. Wan'Dale Robinson had, 9 catches for 40-something yards, was it? I think it was. Yeah, 9 catches for 46 yards. That's the most Wan'Dale stat line you'll see. But the Giants as a whole, they had 296 yards offensively. I feel like that's not good enough. The Niners had 380. And there were a couple of nice runs from the Giants. I think Tracy had one that was like 12-ish yards, and Singletary may have had 1 or 2 decent runs, but nothing explosive at least. And I feel like Jackson Dart, we'll start with him. I feel like he did all he could. I think the one bad moment he had in this game was the Clelin Ferrell sack, where I feel like if there's one thing to criticize, or I would criticize Dart for 2 things, is that he sometimes holds on to the ball too long, but then also at the same time, when he does that, it sometimes turns into a terrific play. Like he just pulls out some magic out of nowhere. So sometimes that works out. But I would say the other thing is taking unnecessary hits. He took a hit in the fourth quarter in this game where I don't know if he got injured from it. It looked like he may have been a bit hurt, but he just took a hit that he should not have taken in the fourth quarter, down by, I think, 2 or 3 scores. Once again, I appreciate him putting his body on the line, but this team ain't worth it. It's really not. Like I think the Patriots, and I know their coaching staff was awful last year with Gerard Mayo, but I think the Patriots did a good job last year of not letting Drake May put his body on the line too much. Like Drake May, as we see now, can run the ball very well and effectively, but I feel like they were making him pull back last year and saying like, we are not running you. They took out May in the final game of the year last year. I'm sure some of that was to preserve the first overall pick, which they didn't get, but still, I think somebody may have to pull Dart to the side and be like, look, man, we're 2-7. This is just not worth it. Like, we don't need you getting very injured. Because I think with Jackson Dart, I think Dart's going to be a good quarterback in this league. I do. I think the one thing that can derail his career is getting injured. Because when you look at Dart and his frame, he's not the biggest guy. What is Dart, like 6'1" or something like that? He's not that tall. He's not that heavy. He's listed at 6'2", 223. Like, not the biggest guy. He already had that hamstring issue in the first start, I think it was, back against the Chargers, but he hasn't missed any time. But either way, I think the guy is a good quarterback once again. I just don't want to see him get hurt because we do see that once in a while, and it's sad, but I just don't think this is a team where you should be putting your body on the line. I mean, I think we all know, and maybe he's just programmed like this, where if he's out there and he's between the lines, he has to put his body on the line. That's just how he plays. But it's also not worth it with this team. So I would like to see him slide a bit more, but I know he's like the ultimate competitor. I get all that. So I don't know. But that's like the one thing that's kind of standing out about Dart that I don't like. But everything else looks great. So 191 passing yards, 5.8 per attempt. I mean, yeah, not ideal once again. 2 touchdowns, no picks, no turnovers. Was sacked twice. One was the Clelin Ferrell. I forget what the other one was. I'm sure I wrote it down. But his longest completion was only 24 yards. I mean, it was really not much. I'm sure that was the Olszewski touchdown. Yes, it was. So yeah, not like there were no long throws in this game, but in fairness to Dart, the Giants don't really have anybody that can take the top off a defense. You know, there's this guy named Jalen Hyatt, supposedly, who's supposed to do that. He's sitting out with wisdom teeth injuries and whatnot, and I don't know if he's going to get traded, if he's worth anything. I don't know, but yeah, the guy's like a figment of our imagination, so he's probably not going to do anything for this team. Running-wise, once again, Devin Singletary, he had a couple of nice runs. He had one for 14 yards. He was 8 carries for 43 yards, 5.4 a carry. You'll take that. Tyrone Tracy, not as efficient, had 5 carries, 18 yards. Had 1 run for 11 yards, so the math says that's 4 carries for 7 yards with his other carries. So, yeah, he wasn't great, but Tracy did have a couple catches that were nice, and he had 3 catches, 19 yards. I think one of them picked up a first down, and they were like designed plays for him. I feel like Jackson Dart, because he's able to run around in the pocket and run for first downs, like he's not going to check down as much as other quarterbacks would, like, you know, an Eli Manning, for instance, or like a Derek Carr was big on it, like guys that just don't have the most mobility and are just really, like, they'll look at their first 2 progressions and just at that point, if they're not there, they'll just check it down to the back. I feel like Jackson Dart's probably not going to do that because Jackson Dart, once again, has the athleticism to run for first downs. Like, you're not going to check it down to the flat when you can just run forward and pick up a first down, which we see that a lot with him. Theo Johnson, I would say a very up and down game, but I would say more bad than good. 6 targets, 3 catches, 27 yards, had the sick touchdown in the first quarter to open up the Giants scoring, but There were a couple of bad drops, I think. There was one bad drop at least. And you can say maybe the shadows got to him because I think the ball started out in the sun and then he was in the shadows. I mean, I get it. It's harder when you're like, I know like playing baseball, it's hard to hit a ball when it's going from the sun to the shadows. But still, I mean, I'm sure the same applies to football. But still, I don't want to give him like, an excuse. But that's the one thing I noticed. I was like, all right, maybe it got caught in the shade or something. But still, a ball you have to catch on third down for Theo Johnson. But just he's been a bit too unreliable at times. He'll make a good play here and there. We saw it. We saw the touchdown today where he had Lenore on him and he basically dragged him for 7 yards and scored a touchdown. Like, that was great. A lot of yards after catch there. You'll take it, but we also want more consistency. Darius Slayton, 7 targets, 5 catches, 62 yards. Had a one slant late in the game, garbage time for 24, 25 yards. I feel like outside of that, didn't do too much. He should have had a touchdown once again. So it's back-to-back weeks for Slayton where his stat line should have looked much better. Of course, last week against Philly, he was robbed of a 68-yard touchdown. That was the stupid offensive pass interference call. And then today, he should have had a long touchdown of 30 yards or something, and he didn't hold on. Gunnar Olszewski, I think that was his first catch of the year, a 24-yard touchdown. That was good to see. I feel like Olszewski did something good in the return game too, I forget, but he looked pretty good out there for what he does. Singletary, 2 catches, 8 yards, and Ray McLeod, I did not see this one happen. Wow, I must have missed this one. 1 catch for 5 yards. Of course, he's a new Giant. And we also saw John Michael Schmitz go down with an injury. He's had some injury issues the past 4 or 5 weeks. It's sad because I feel like he was starting to turn a corner and play well, but he did not come back in this game, so that was unfortunate to see, but hopefully he gets better soon. And we saw no Jermaine Illuminor. I forgot to list who was inactive. I went over the secondary, but no Illuminor. We saw Marcus Bowe, who of course had, I think, the false start. He got destroyed on 1 rep and let up a sack. That was the other sack, yeah. So there was the 1 sack where Dart, I think, was responsible, and Cleveland Farrell came from basically behind him from the end zone and sacked him. I don't know how he held on to that ball, so credit to Dart for that. But the other one was Marcus Bowe getting beat right away. I forget who it was. It was some 49er edge rusher with a very odd last name, like a long, tough-to-pronounce last name. I know that. But, yeah, Marcus Bowe got destroyed on that rep. As I was saying, no Javon Holland, no Adebo, no Flott, no Chauncey Golston. That's been a bust of a signing so far, which I like that signing, but it just has not worked out so far. Illuminor, Daniel Bellinger, and Jameis Winston was the emergency quarterback. But offensively, I think they just lack playmakers. I really do think if you gave Jackson Dart a high-end wide receiver, which is supposed to be Malik Neighbors, you hope that he comes back next year and is completely healthy. But I would really, if I was the Giants, I would go into the draft thinking I need a wide receiver in the 1st or 2nd round. Like you don't want to draft based off need. I feel like you get in trouble with that sometimes, but at the same time, like whether it's free agency or through the draft, they can definitely use another weapon. Like they could really use somebody opposite of a healthy Malik Neighbors and just give the Giants offense a different look, because I just don't love what I see from these other guys. I think Wan'Dale does good or does well for his role. Like we know what he is. But at the same time, like these other guys, whether it's Darius Slayton, who got the extension, which I still don't know why they did that. Jalen Hyatt, I mentioned, he's useless. Olszewski is a punt returner, kick returner type guy. Bo Collins, I mean, I don't know what to expect from him. He had that one bad moment where he stopped running that route against the Saints and let up an interception. And then you had, who was the practice squad guy? Lil Jordan Humphrey. He had a couple good moments in that Eagles game in the win, but I feel like outside of that, really not much. Defensively, for the Giants, Okereke had a lot of tackles, as he tends to do, 14 tackles in this game. Dane Belton also had 14 tackles. I mean, it's not good when your safety is having 14 tackles. Don't love seeing that. We saw a lot of Demetrius Flanagan fouls in this game. He was a former 49er. I had to look him up. I was like, who is this guy? Like, I thought he was a safety at first because he was wearing number, I think, 33 or something. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? So I looked him up, and he spent 5 years on the 49ers. But he had a nice play, a nice tackle on McCaffrey in the flat. But outside of that, I don't know what else he was doing. I feel like he was part of the problem with the run defense, of course. So Muasau left with I think it was an ankle injury, so we'll see if he's all right. But it's not like Muasau is anything that great anyway. Raheem Nunez-Rocha has got a sack, okay? I feel like otherwise he wasn't that great. Brian Burns had the sack, and I think they credited Abdul Carter at first with an interception, and then they called it a fumble recovery, so Abdul Carter making one play there. But Brian Burns, I feel bad for him. The guy's having like literally a defensive player of the year type season, and he's going to get no recognition probably because his team sucks. Like if the Giants win 4 games this year, no one's going to care if Brian Burns has 17 sacks and 5 forced fumbles. No one's going to care. Like, it sucks. But anyway, that's just how it is when you're on a bad team. And maybe we'll see that put to the test because I know Myles Garrett is having an insane year. I want to see his stats because I know he had that 5-sack game, and I know the Browns are just awful. So Garrett right now has 10 sacks. He leads the league in tackles for loss with 15. He has how many forced fumbles? Only 1, but still, 10 sacks. You'll take that through 8 games. So the guy's on an over 20 sack pace, but he's also on a Cleveland Browns team that has 2 wins right now, and I think they have 6 or 7 losses. So we'll see. We'll see if like Myles Garrett, if he breaks the sack record or something. Like we'll see if they give him the Defensive Player of the Year still. I'm kind of curious. Anyway, Dane Belton, more bad than good. I mentioned Deonte Banks, 3 solo tackles, but so much bad from him in this game. I don't want to see Deonte Banks play for the Giants ever again, but you also have to realize there's not much else they can put out there, so you just have to really give Joe Shane a lot of shit for trading up for this guy when Joey Porter was right there. There were other, of course, good players in that area, and he trades up for Deonte Banks, which has just not been good. I feel like Banks had a lot of potential at first, and he was doing a good job of sticking with this guy. He just couldn't get his head turned, and we always thought, like, oh, you can coach that out of him, and it has not been coached out of him, and there are just a lot of effort issues and bad tackling and things like that, so I don't like what I see from Deonte Banks, and maybe the Giants cut him, trade him, and he goes on and to be a good cornerback 2 elsewhere, but they drafted him to be a cornerback 1, and we're never going to get that. So it's a wasted pick, and it sucks, and you have to look at Joe Shane on that one. Dexter Lawrence, 1 solo tackle in this game, 1 tackle for loss. He got called out by Carl Banks, as we know, this week, and that was kind of awkward, but I don't know. Dexter Lawrence has been a problem this year, not in a good way. Like, he's been just, I don't know. I don't know if he's been out of shape or if he's still hurt. I don't know. He just has not been effective as he has in years past. He's still been an above-average player. I don't want to say, like, Dexter Lawrence is unplayable, but he's just not the same guy we've seen the past 2-3 years when he was, like, an elite player and Defensive Player of the Year conversations and all that. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, but he's under contract for a while, so figure that shit out, I guess. Drew Phillips didn't really do too much, had 1 tackle for a loss. I think that was on a McCaffrey toss. That was one of the rare times they actually stopped the run for a loss. Corey Black, he was bad in this game. Had 1 tackle for a loss, 1 pass defended, but just had a couple of bad moments. He lit up that touchdown to Jawan Jennings on the whip route or zig route, and that was ugly, and there was another bad moment from him in this game. So didn't love what I saw there, but a lot of bad defense. It there's been way too many Giants games like that in recent years where like a team can just go up and down the field at will. It doesn't matter. Mac Jones playing quarterback, he starts out 14 for 14. I don't know. It was just easy pitch and catch the entire day. They had some good reps against McCaffrey, but he really, towards the end of that game, they always say, like, as the game goes on, a team's run defense gets worse, especially against physicality. They always say that for, like, for Derrick Henry and guys like that. They get better as the game goes on. We saw that in this game because the last 2 runs by Brian Robinson Jr., the tackling on those plays was just so pathetic. And one was Deonte Banks. Kayvon on the first one had him wrapped up. Couldn't get him to the ground. He picks up another, 7-8 yards. And then on the next play, they go back to Robinson, and he runs over Deonte Banks and scores a touchdown. And that was pretty much the game right there. I think I stopped taking notes after that. So that was disgusting. We saw McCaffrey had, some pretty successful runs towards the end of that game, but McCaffrey was still 3.8 yards per carry. It wasn't anything great, 28 carries for 106 yards. I don't know why they gave him so much work, but Brian Robinson had 5 carries for 53 yards and a touchdown, so that's not what you want to see. They ran George Kittle on that stupid end-around play, which I think is the play Corey Black got the tackle for loss on, I'm pretty sure. So that, I don't know why they called that, but didn't really work. And then once again, they made Mac Jones look great. He started out 14 for 14, finished with 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, got sacked twice, 39 yards for a long pass in this game. All right, on to Mike's notes from the game. So First 3rd and 5 for the Giants on their first drive. Jackson Dart scrambled for that first down. Theo Johnson had that great touchdown in the flat. Had 7 yards of yak on that play. That was great. So Giants get out to a 7-0 lead. And like last week against Philly, you're thinking early, like, we have a game here. And then turns out we didn't have a game here. 3rd and 7 to Juwan Jennings on a slant. He was tackled by Deonte Banks. He picked up 6 yards. 4th and 1, the quarterback sneak was successful by Mac Jones. Brian Dable wanted a false start. He was going crazy on the sideline, and they did show a replay, and it looked like Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, did leave a bit early. So they probably should have called a false start there. I mean, you don't want to blame the refs because the Giants are just embarrassing regardless of officiating, but that's one where they should have called it. Jordan Watkins and Deonte Banks had one of those tie goes to the receiver type plays where Deonte Banks was very close to getting an interception there. Like, I was happy with that rep, but 99% of the time, like, the refs will give a tie. Like, if the corner and receiver catch the ball simultaneously, they will give it to the receiver. It's like the tie goes to the runner in baseball. By the way, baseball, what a game last night. I hope you guys watched it. I don't know if, like, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of baseball fans in here, but I don't know. Even if you didn't like baseball, like last night's game, Game 7, was phenomenal. But anyway, 3rd and 3, Christian McCaffrey left wide ass open for a touchdown that made it 7-7. I tried to watch the replay back. It was man defense. I don't know if, because it was pretty much everybody went to the right on the receiver side for the Niners, and McCaffrey cleared out to the left, so they just like isolated McCaffrey, and nobody followed him. I don't know if it might have been Okereke. I think I saw Dane Belton was there. Like, he might have, one of those guys had to pick up McCaffrey, and I think they got stuck in traffic because, as I said, the Niners had a couple receivers on the left side of that formation, ran them to the right, and I think whichever linebacker or safety was supposed to cover McCaffrey just got caught up in that traffic and couldn't get over to McCaffrey. So he had nobody within 10 or 15 yards of him, and he catches a wide open touchdown. There was a 3rd and 9 for the Giants. A curl to Slayton left them 2 yards short of the first down. The Giants had to punt, and then here came the 3rd and 4 zig route touchdown to Juwan Jennings for a touchdown. As I said, Corey Black was slipping out of his break, and that led up a touchdown. So Mac Jones, as I said, got off to a great start. He was 10 of 10 for 98 yards and 2 touchdowns to start off this game. The Giants then had that awful sequence, as I went over before, where it was the back-to-back false starts, a 3rd and 4 to a 3rd and 9, then a 3rd and 9 to a 3rd and 14. Then they were forced to check it down to Theo Johnson. They were well short of the first down. The Giants had to punt. Play action pass to Juwan Jennings for 20 yards. Deonte Banks was playing off of him. I don't know if it was zone or not, but Deonte Banks was the closest one there. That led up 20 yards. Christian McCaffrey tried to run a return, a zig route on Flanagan fouls that random linebacker, the former 49er, and he tackles his former teammate Christian McCaffrey for a loss, or I don't think it was a loss, but he tackled him short of the first down marker, so that was a big play by him. Jackson Dart got destroyed by Cleveland Farrell. I mean, once again, that's one play where I think if I can criticize Jackson Dart, that's the one where I'm going to look towards because, you know, you have to have some awareness that the guy's running behind you. And, you know, he tried to extend the play. I give him credit. Once again, like Jackson Dart does a great job of buying himself time, but you also can't run yourself into a sack like that. They threw short of the sticks to Wandale. The Giants had to punt. It felt like that happened a lot today where just Wandale sat down in the zone and just picked up 5, 6, 7, 8 yards, and the Giants would have to punt. Raheem Nunez-Roches had a sack on Mac Jones, made it 3rd and 17. The Niners ran that little screen over the middle to McCaffrey, picked up 12 yards. They were forced to punt. Actually, no, there was no punt there. That was when Pinheiro made the 54-yard field goal, which I don't know how he made this because Pinheiro is like more of an accuracy kicker, not a long-distance kicker. But he kicked it so low. I'm like, how did nobody block this thing? Like, he kicked it at such a line drive, and like, he kicked it accurately, which is what he does once again, but when a kicker kicks the ball that low, like, you're thinking, why couldn't somebody block this kick? So, made the 54-yarder. That was when, around the time Darius Muasau was announced questionable with the ankle injury. So, it's 17-7 Niners at that point. 3rd and 7 for the Giants. Jackson Dart, once again, good throw over the middle to Theo Johnson. Maybe the shadows affected it, but he dropped it. That was not a good look. The Niners, they tried to be aggressive at the end of the first half. They had Mac Jones throwing the ball in their own territory with like 30 seconds left. Brian Burns got the fumble, and it was brought down by Abdul Carter. So those guys making plays, that was good to see. Giants take over at San Fran's 27-yard line. They gain no yards in those 3 downs. I think there was an incompletion thrown behind Tracy. That was like one bad Jackson Dart play. He threw it behind Tracy, and 2 other incompletions. Graham Gano from 45 yards. Once again, I don't know why Graham Gano is still here. He's like a liability due to injuries. He has not been that effective this year. He's made his kicks, but I just can't trust the guy at this point. He's too old. He's too injured. So he misses it from 45 yards. So it should have been 17-10 going into halftime, but it stayed 17-7. Coming out of halftime, George Kittle made really nice back-to-back catches despite getting hit by Tyler Nubin and Dane Belton. George Kittle, he's like the opposite of a Darius Slayton. Like, he will catch through contact with the best of them, and I feel like Nubin and Dane Belton, they timed up those hits very well, but George Kittle's a dog, and he just held on to them and picked up first downs on both. Christian McCaffrey had a toss play blown up for a loss of 4 by Drew Phillips. That was good to see, but then Sky Moore on 2nd and 14. This was the other bad Corey Black play I was forgetting about. So Sky Moore picks up 21 yards on Corey Black. George Kittle end around, lost 3 yards, tackled by Okereke. There was a 3rd and 13. Corey Black was guarding Jawan Jennings, a back shoulder throw. It fell incomplete. He did have, Corey Black had his hand on Jennings' jersey. I don't know if he was tugging at it, but still, I feel like sometimes they call that. So we'll call that good coverage. Pinheiro made a 33-yard field goal. So at that point, it's 20-7. Dart has that insane pocket escape where he steps up in the pocket and like 3 Niners defenders basically collide on him, and he still gets out of it. There was defensive holding on this play, and he ran for about 15 yards. They picked up 5 extra yards on the holding. John Michael Schmitz left the game injured, never came back. Dart scrambles again. The Niners had the unnecessary roughness, late hit. Once again, Jackson Dart putting his body on the line. 3rd and goal to Singletary in the flat was stopped short, so Graham Gano had to settle for a 22-yard field goal. I was a bit surprised they didn't go for it, but it did make it a 20-10 game. The Niners had a 3rd and 1. They went for the quarterback sneak, but there was an illegal shift to make it 3rd and 6, and then Brian Burns steps up again. He bats down a pass on a screen. That forced a 49ers punt. Dart got sacked. This was the play where Marcus Bowe got destroyed by Sam Akinnaman. I don't even know how to pronounce his name, but I should know that. Like, that's lack of ball knowing on my part. But that sack made it 2nd and 17. That pretty much destroyed that drive. There was a 3rd and 9 for Wan'Dale Robinson that got knocked away. The Giants had the punt. Kendrick Bourne picked up 13 yards on Deonte Banks. Nothing new there. Christian McCaffrey had back-to-back runs for 9 yards, then 10 yards. So that's when the McCaffrey, I feel like end of the 3rd quarter is when the McCaffrey runs went from 2 or 3 yards a carry to like 6, 7, 8 yards a carry. Like, he was really starting to pick up some chunk runs. Then we had the Brian Robinson 18-yard touchdown, pathetic tackling by the Giants. That made it 27-10. That was the ball game right there. Darius Slayton had the crosser for 25 yards. Jackson Dart had the quarterback power for a 6-yard rushing touchdown. So that made it 27-17, but I still felt like the Giants had no chance to come back. Christian McCaffrey had the big swing pass, another miscommunication by the Giants defense. He just went in the flat, put his hand up because nobody was guarding him, and Mac Jones saw it. He swung it out to McCaffrey in stride. He picked up like 40 yards on that play. I think it was Corey Black once again. Corey Black, I think, was supposed to get the running back, and he went to George Kittle. So some type of miscommunication there. There was a tripping call on Dane Belton on that drive, made it a 1st and goal for the Niners. And then on 3rd and goal from the 3-yard line, Christian McCaffrey runs it in, and that was definitely the nail in the coffin. And the other 2 plays I wrote down was the Darius Slayton drop, which we went over before, where he should have had a touchdown. I mean, defender made a good play, but once again, make a catch through contact, it won't kill you. And then Gunnar Olszewski had his first catch of the year, scored a touchdown, made it 34-24, and that was the game. So I don't want to say the offense laid down and died, because they didn't, but the defense definitely laid down and died. And I don't know what the appeal of keeping Shane Bowen is. I know, once again, it's a bad look for Brian Daboll if he lets go of Shane Bowen mid-season, but everything Brian Daboll has done to this point is a bad look. I just don't know why. If you're Brian Daboll with, how many games are left? There's 8 games left. What if you make somebody else defensive coordinator, right? One of these position coaches, you make them defensive coordinator. What if the defense turns everything around, right? And the defense looks great the second half of the year. The defensive line is everything it was advertised to be. The secondary gets healthier and they all start to step up. Like, what if that happens, right? Like, if you're not Jackson Dart, if you're Brian Dable, you might as well start throwing shit at the wall and see what sticks, because you have to save your job. And I feel like one of the ways you can save your job is by making Shane Bowen the scapegoat. I'm not saying it's right, but Shane Bowen does suck. So you fire Shane Bowen, and let's say the final 8 weeks of the year, the defense looks amazing. Not saying it's likely to happen, but it could happen once again. You want to just throw darts at this point, no pun intended. But if you're Brian Dable, your job's on life support. Why not try a new defensive coordinator? There's always that chance that maybe these guys start playing better, and maybe Shane Bowen was a big problem, which I think he is. And if that happens and the Giants finish out the year 4-4, they get to 6 wins on the year and things look better, and Jackson Dart's still playing great, and you're still putting up offensive numbers without Scattaboo, without Neighbors, I feel like at that point, Brian Dable would have a lot to sell John Mara on and be like, look, the defense stepped up. Shane Bowen was the problem. We got rid of him. The offense still looks good. We have our top 2 playmakers are out, the running back and wide receiver 1, and we're putting up numbers here, right? So I feel like that's the one way Brian Dable can save his job to this point, because I don't know how else he does. So once again, I would not be surprised if they fire Bowen, but I said this last week, and I said this against the Niners, or not the Niners, I said this against Denver when they had that big comeback in the fourth quarter with the 33 not unanswered, but the 33 fourth quarter points. But I also feel like if he hasn't been fired yet, Shane Bowen, I'm not sure what else gets him fired, because, I don't know. He's done so many bad things here, and this defense looks atrocious, but he still has hung on. And the Giants' run defense has been so bad. I mean, they gave up 152 yards against the Chargers. They gave up 220 rushing yards against Washington in week 1, 135 in week 2. Last week was 276. The week before that against Denver, 142. And then today against the Niners, it was 159. So the run defense looks so bad. And I don't know if it's going to change with a defensive coordinator switch, but if you're Brian Dable, why not? I don't know why you wouldn't try it at this point. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens. As I said, 8 games left, and there are tough ones. It's not any easier. You're at Chicago next week, where right now they're favored by 3.5. I figured it'd be more, so it's a bit surprising. But I guess the Bears, you can score on them. You can. I think the Ben Johnson offense is good. It's creative, of course. We saw DJ Moore score a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown today. So they do some cool shit that like he did on the Lions. But the Bears defense has issues. The Giants can score on them, but I don't think the Giants are going to be able to outdo them, because the Giants defense is probably going to get destroyed by Caleb Williams. And they have Monungai, who, as if you're a Rutgers fan out there, you know about him. He looked great today. I know once again it's against a very bad Bengals defense, but it still happened. I guess maybe the Giants can beat the Packers in week 11, which is 2 weeks from now, because the Packers, their only 2 losses are to bad teams, and I feel like we fit right in there. So I don't know if the Panthers are bad, but they're not good either. Like the Panthers, I think they're like 5-4 somehow, but they're not. I wouldn't call them a good football team either. And they also lost to Cleveland. I think they lost to Cleveland, right? It was either that or they tied them. I forget. Yeah, I think they lost to them, because they tied Dallas and they have 2 losses. So they had to have lost to Cleveland. So they lost to Cleveland and to Carolina. That was the Packers' only 2 losses. So I don't know if they play down to their competition. Tucker Kraft probably tore his ACL today, which hate that, especially for fantasy football. He was carrying a couple of my teams, so that was rough to see. A rough sports day in general for me. Whether it was the Brooklyn Nets getting blown out yet again, which probably is a good thing for the draft pick. The Giants are unwatchable. Tucker Kraft out for the year. I mean, just rough day in sports. So the days like this, I ask myself, why do I do this to myself? Why do I let sports consume my life? But I don't know. It's probably not changing, so it is what it is. But the Giants, they have the entire NFC North coming up. Very tough division to play. At New England, week 13. They have the bye week. Then they're hosting Washington, hosting Minnesota, which now that looks like a tougher game, because I almost said Christian McCaffrey. J.J. McCarthy comes back and looks really good. I mean, not terrific, but he looked good enough to beat the Lions, so that was good to see for them. So McCarthy comes back, and the Giants are home for that game, so I'm not saying they're favored to win that probably, but it might be a close game. But the Vikings look scarier now than they did 24 hours ago. They're at the Raiders in week 17. I think they can win that game. Then they're home versus the Cowboys the final week. So maybe the Giants end the year on like a 3-game win streak or something and they can save Dable's job. But at the same time, I'm not expecting that. So I just think these next 4-5 games are going to be very tough, and there is a chance the Giants can drop to 2-12. It would not be too surprising. It can happen, but I feel like in all likelihood, the next 5 games they will be underdogs, and they might be underdogs the rest of the year. I guess it's not too surprising. I think they might be favored against the Raiders. The Bears are already favored. The Packers will definitely be favored. The Lions will for sure be favored, maybe by double digits. The Patriots for sure, unless Drake May got hurt, and then you have Washington at home, where I still think Washington's a decent team. They're playing right now. I have not checked the score, but they're still a better team than the Giants, and I think the Vikings are a better roster too. So the Giants are going to be in a tough spot the next 5-6 games, but I feel like the final 3 games, it gets a bit easier. Dallas's defense is still really bad, so I don't know. They can maybe do some things the final 3 weeks, but when you're 2-12 at that point, who cares? At that point, I would just say shut Jackson Dart down and let Russell Wilson lose us some games, because let's get the best, skill position player in the draft. I don't know who it is. I don't really have not looked into prospects, but I'd rather have a higher pick once again. So yeah, I would rather see that happen, but still a lot of time till then. So we'll find out what happens in the coming month or so. But it's been yet another tough season, and at this point, I just do not care about really if they lose or not. It's sad to say, but I've reached that point this year where it just does not matter. It does not affect my day. So I was more sad about the Tucker Kraft ACL than watching the Giants lose. So that's where my head's at. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed, of course. Leave a like, as I always say, subscribe, all that, and I will talk to you guys next time.